Hello, good to see you. Thanks for looking in. This offence dates from the 1990s. This is a court report that I had to prepare in the 1990s and involves a 21-year-old chap who I should call Fred. And this sort of offence doesn't happen anymore, but it was rife in the 1980s and 90s. But it involved him using a stolen checkbook and attempting to obtain property with this stolen checkbook. So he attempted to obtain a gold cluster ring worth about £90 from Argos. So this sort of offence was rife, actually. What used to happen was that people used to steal checkbooks and the cards, or the credit cards were stolen. Sometimes these were obtained through the post. You know, they were intercepted in the post, the brand new cards. But also when these cards were stolen, they would try and clean off the signature with dry cleaning fluid and then put their own, or they'd learn the signature on the strip. So there's different methods, and it became quite an organised crime, actually. There were these male offenders who would be driving around with young women in their car, say about 4 or 5 women. They'd attend a shopping centre. The man would remain in the car, and he would send out these women to take all the risks, and they would buy all these goods illegally. They would deceive, buying these with stolen checkbooks or the stolen credit cards, and they come back with all sorts of electrical goods and the like, which he would then sell. So, and then he would give a small margin to these women who were taking all the risks, you see. So, anyway, back to Fred. There he is. He went into Argos with his stolen checkbook, and he selected this gold cluster ring for 90 quid. And he wrote out the cheque, and it was the beginnings before chip and pin, I think. And but she tapped in the account number in their system, and it came up that this account, the card had been stolen. So she called the manager, and that resulted in his arrest. He had got away previously in various days beforehand. He had 12 other offences where he'd got away with writing these false cheques and bought various items illegally to the value of about 700 quid, which he sold to family and friends. So quite a serious offence, premeditated. Obviously, he's got sophisticated contacts. How did he come by this checkbook? You know. So he said that he came by this checkbook because he'd sold a card to his friend for £1,200, and his friend was unable to pay. So in lieu of payment, his friend gave him this dodgy checkbook to try and recoup the money. He shouldn't have sold his card to that guy in the first place, possibly, So anyway, very, very worrying. Now, I've been banging on in my other videos saying that many offenders have very unsettled backgrounds. Many of them drop out of school, and I feel that we could really stop future offending if we could deal with this issue. But currently, the authorities have no idea how many children are not attending school, which is terrible, isn't it? And we know anecdotally that, and this is a typical case of this, is where people have an unsettled background and they stop attending school for whatever reason, they're very likely to become offenders. So children who drop out of school or who are excluded are very high risk of becoming offenders in the future. And if we could reverse that situation as a society, I think we could cut down future offending. So, very unsettled background. he grew up in a awful home, I think, where there was a lot of violence, domestic violence going on. Um, when I asked him about his dad, he had a very ambivalent attitude towards his dad. He kind of saw his dad as a failure and not very helpful at all. So that's about his dad. Um, his dad, he's over the years had little or no contact with his dad. Dad left home when he was about 3 years old. Mum remarried his stepfather, and young Fred did not get on at all well with stepfather. He was quite uncontrollable, really, and stepfather resorted to violence. And when Fred was 16 years old, he was taken into care, age 16. He was beyond parental control, but also because of the violence going on. So he's placed in care, and the situation didn't improve because he just had a very, very unsettled existence. Over the space of about a year, I think he had about 16 different foster placements because he was unmanageable, and he didn't comply, with the rules of the places where he's being fostered. So numerous failed care placements, which is quite common, really, amongst offenders. So when he's coming up to about 17, he was placed in semi-independent accommodation, which was run by charity, bedsit type thing, but also they were offered a bit of support. And his behaviour actually started to improve a bit. However, sadly, despite this sort of improvement, he had to return home when the building was being redeveloped, and they all had to leave the hostel place, the semi-independent accommodation. So he returned home to his mum and his stepdad, and his behaviour, him and his brother, he had a twin brother's behaviour, went out of control again. Terrible, terrible, terrible. So regarding schooling, primary school, okay-ish, I think, but I do worry about what did he learn, what sort of things, how did he progress at primary school, and I think his literacy problems kind of sailed under the radar. Strangely, he went to a grammar school, but didn't last at all long there. Rebelled, played up with the teachers. He was passed to another school, which again failed, and he was in the end sent to a special unit, and that didn't work out. And in between, there was a period of about a year where he didn't attend school at all, I think. So, pretty poor. Response to supervision from under 18, they're supervised by social services. Pretty poor again. He was sentenced to an attendance centre order. These are quite interesting because they came up in the 1970s. It was an invention, really, to sentence football hooligan type people to attendance centre order, and they would take place on Saturdays, often in a school or village hall or something, and they were run by the police. And the whole idea was to occupy these football hooligans with full of activities on a Saturday instead of, and that would stop them going to football and being a nuisance. But these carried on for other offences. So he got his for, I don't know, I think offences, shoplifting and things like that. He started driving illegally as well, age 16, and committed quite a few illegal driving offences. So when he breached his attendance centre order and for a driving offence, he was sent to young offender institution. Net result of that probably was he became more of a confirmed offender, made friends with more sophisticated offenders and learnt how to do more crimes. So after quite an unsettled existence, he was placed on probation, turning about 18, 19, and he was leading a pretty unsettled existence, different places. He was quite difficult to manage, but he found himself a girlfriend, and that proved to be a big turnaround because he went to live with her. So he was returned to court for breach, but the court said, well, we're fed up sending you to jail. We want to see you finish this order satisfactorily. And actually he did, but largely as a result of the support of his girlfriend, really. She gave him settled address, support, and motivated him, really. And we saw much improved behaviour. He was on a alcohol counselling and education program, and he stopped using illegal drugs, which was really good progress. And he significantly reduced his alcohol abuse, and he kind of only drank alcohol in moderation, which is a big improvement. The other thing that happened was she helped him get a job, and he went and got a job in a garage as an apprentice, and this went really well. He was good at the practical bits, but unfortunately when he went to college it just all fell apart again, because one, the classroom environment, but actually his literacy skills were poor, and he failed the apprenticeship because of that. He did well with the practical but couldn't do the theory. So after a few other various jobs and things that he got, he ended up working with sister's brother, older brother, and he worked as a drainage engineer, and he worked with the brother. He'd been working with him for about a year, and this went really well. So, and he's earning a good wage now. So he's beginning to settle down. The other thing was he had this older brother who had been on probation to me, who'd made a fantastic turnaround in his life. I mentioned in another video, but his older brother stopped offending altogether. He's another one who dropped out of school about 12 or 14, I can't remember. But anyway, he expressed interest in studying himself. I got him to go to the library. We got him improving his literacy. We got him attending an access course. He successfully applied and completed an access course, and this enabled him to apply to university, and he did a degree in law. And whilst doing his degree and all his studies, he distanced himself from offenders and stopped offending altogether, and lo and behold, he actually got a law degree. And I was incredibly proud of this guy who hadn't been to school, turning his life around and getting a law degree. I mean, that was fantastic. So that was his older brother. So if older brother can do it, perhaps so could younger brother. But in this instance, we had different aims. Now, he's now 21. He'd been banned all his time from 16, and his ban had just ended age 21, his driving ban. This provided an opportunity, and I did a test on his driving theory and his literacy skills. And driving theory, not too bad, but literacy skills really poor. So if he was going to pass his driving test properly, he really needed to address this, and he was motivated to do it. So I felt, now's the time for a probation order. Let's continue this progress with employment. Let's get him passing his driving test appropriately. And I had access to this charity for, it was encourage young people to have a responsible attitude towards motoring. And he would, learn how to treat the car with respect, how to service it himself, how to do an oil change and all that at this charity. And they did a bit of banging racing and things like that. But it was all properly supervised by an ex-police officer, so it really pucker. So I proposed to the court a 2-year probation order and some community service, and that he compensate the bank that he'd stole the money from. It was about 700 quid's worth of dud checks that he'd passed, and so, part of his wage would have to go to compensation order. Now, bear in mind, if somebody's sent to prison, they can't compensate the victims of any offence whilst they're sitting in jail. So most people go, oh, send them to jail. But hang on a minute. So that was the plan. And actually, I'm pleased to report he successfully completed his probation order and got his driving test. We give him during that period. So just to show that, a lot of people immediately think, oh, send him to jail. But in this case, quite a typical story of many offenders, very unsettled background, domestic violence going on, very unsettled schooling. But actually, if you can grab them and do positive things with them, you can get people going in a positive direction. I think the factor in this case, and the person that really helped him, was Freddie's girlfriend, to be honest. So anyway, interesting, and I hope you enjoyed that. Do put comments in, and have a lovely day. Cheers now. Bye-bye.